have been a regular feature of English life. And they're a recorded ride as long as ago as 1169 in Britain. There have been what we might call race rides going back to at least 1567 in London. So when people start to present these events as being somehow unique, somehow as being extraordinary, we need to be careful. We need to understand that it's part of a much longer history, a part of a history that perhaps all of us have been involved in the past. But equally, we need to understand each time it happens, why it happens, and perhaps as importantly, what we do to avoid it happening again.
We might understand the reasons behind it, but that doesn't mean to say we either approve or like what actually happened. So we need to think about what we can do. There's no point in us saying that there is no responsibility or accountability. There is. We need to start from families and communities. We need to have a response from professionals. We need a response which is societal and institutional. And we also need a response and responsibility from young people themselves.
But now we're hearing 27 times more likely than a white person to be stopped and searched. In Haringey, in the 2 months before the riots, there were 6,680 odd stops and searches. Now, you do the math. If black kids are 27 times more likely than a white person to be stopped and searched, that means that virtually all of those stops and searches are on black kids. In Haringey, it's on rich parts. So it's only Tottenham and Hornsey where these stops and searches are taking place. So it means that these 6,000 and odd stops and searches were on the same kids at the same time. They talk about stop and search, and there's this con going on. And somehow, we're allowing this con to be continued and continued and continued. They can't stop and search. It's a necessary tactic, clearly. They can't do it by intelligence-led policing because they can't tell the difference between one black person and another. Okay? We had this is not a joke. We had this in the 80s, Roger Graves did a program, and they clearly admitted on TV, we can't tell the difference. We can say a white person has a straight nose, or a Roman nose, or a Greek nose, or blue eyes, or brown eyes, or fair hair, or dark hair. We cannot tell the difference between black people. It means that their inability to do that means that if you commit a crime, my brother, I can get stopped. Even if we're standing up next to each other. Okay? And the young people see this. And young people wonder why it is that we allow this situation to happen.
Any country where the police force or army can only rule, they can only be ordered by consent of the people. Because there's far more people than there are police.
We did some work with 50 young people in June, so before the riots, and they were saying that they experienced discrimination in their schools by the police and in society due to their race and their age.
The government expects the youth to be respectful towards police and respectful towards their communities, and I think there needs to be something that they need to be proud of. And I think that the cuts had a huge effect on the way that perceive their communities. I think that if the cuts weren't as severe, they would have had things to do. I mean, think about it, it was in the middle of summer, they were probably very bored, and it was just seen as another thing to do. I also think that video games and the way our society seems to work right now didn't really help. I think if you look at games like Grand Theft Auto and how people can run around doing exactly what they want, I think that some of the youth seem to want to replicate that.
The reason why most youths saw it fit to still come out of shops to do was because they thought that they were claiming back their taxes.
I was thinking about the young people in St Paul's who, some of them are actually gang members. I know the kids in St Paul's are easily killing each other at the moment. It's serious. But some of them are just kids hanging around, as kids do. And behind them, behind where they're hanging around, is a massive brand new gym with all these amazing facilities that was supposed to have been built for the community. But the kids can't get in because you can only join if you can set up a direct debit. So they can't go to the gym. And when they do go, so when Donovan takes them to play football, when they come out of the football pitch or whatever, he was saying that if they hang around there chatting, they get moved on. If they go in without a project worker, they get asked by the staff what they're doing there.
There's a lack of communication totally. I think we need to sort of look into schooling as well when you do get a percentage of children that fall, you know, in year 7 and 8 and just can't do well in class sizes, and they sort of go off down that route, you know, that it's better to bunk off of school and get in trouble. And I think quite a big gap now is ending up that way, that a lot of the youngsters that are not at school do go down a bad route, and then it makes it even easier to be one of those spaces that end up doing rioting and things like that.
But there is an issue about people not having a sense of future, not having a stake in society. I come from a particular religious tradition that has a phrase that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think that we kind of see some of that. And I was very interested to hear, we can very easily fall into the fact, you know, youth clubs are closed down. To be honest with you, statutory youth clubs are insignificant in terms of numbers of young people compared with faith-based.
But I do think part of it is that parents themselves have been disempowered. It's very difficult to be a good, positive parent if you have no work. If your child sees you filling in 30, 40 application forms, knowing what qualifications you have, and you never get a job. I want you to have ambition. How are you going to do that? Your child needs to see that things you're telling them to do is achievable. And that's difficult, very difficult at the moment.
One of the things I would look at is the response of the media. I think the media has not treated us at all fairly.
There was a black male who was shot and it was unarmed. And most people would see that as a sort of race issue.
I watched it, every one of us in this room watched it unfold on television. It was right in front of our eyes. It was everybody. There were young people, there were old people, there were black people, there were Asian people, Chinese people, everybody. And they were going in smashing shops and running away with stuff, right? And you know, I think that you can see several agendas coming out where it doesn't seem like the response of the media and the response of our policy wants to actually face what we obviously see in front of our eyes, but they want to put another narrative and solve an imaginary narrative, which clearly isn't there.
The press has also just recently, in the last week, been talking a lot about angry black women. Well, I'm an angry black woman. I don't know whether it's worse to be angry black or a woman, but I'm all three. What can we do? Well, following the conviction of 2 of Stephen Lawrence's killers, 4 more to go, the Prime Minister has admitted the UK still has a problem with racism. Given this admission, Voice for Change called upon central government to launch a strategy to tackle racism and persistent inequalities. We'd like them to go back to thinking about this.
Where are the local black leaders? Where are the people who have had the opportunity, who have tried to take the benefit of education and learn the system and try to get into the system? And I think that is critical. It's critical if you can't see people like me and my peers, of whom there are many, if you can't see us anywhere. Now this is critical, not just for me, because wouldn't I like a job that paid me more money, but wouldn't I like to be in a position where my voice could make a difference? Because if the young people want to aspire, they need to see where it is and what they're aspiring to. And I have to say, in 2012, and I've been in the field now for 30 odd years, so I know what it was like in the 80s and the 90s. And I have watched the numbers of black people in any career you can think of diminish and diminish and diminish to the point of obscurity. So if there are none, not because we don't have the qualification, don't have the, if there are none, then Why should we expect our young people to be thinking, oh, I think I'd like to be a teacher, or I think I'd like to be a lawyer? Because there's nothing out there that looks like them.
I think we need to continue to push at the layers of our society and the layers of issues around race and culture and identity, etc. And really push at strategic and higher levels, which is not easy to do as an ordinary person in an ordinary community, but I think it is possible the more that we all have dialogue together, all ages, all backgrounds, and really being honest and open about some really difficult issues like race.
Parents themselves have been disempowered.
Parents need help because we're living in a completely different world than we did yesterday. We cannot necessarily use the pattern of our own parenthood to cope with what's being thrown up now. What's allowable and what you can do to your children is different. The way your children interact with you is completely different to the way you would interact when you were a child. The influences with the internet, with electronic media, with the way we communicate is different. The pattern's different. We as a set of parents are dealing with something that's unknown, unfamiliar. It's not something we've done before. We need help as well.
Most of the people I know who are parents in 2012 trying to raise young people are good parents like me. And the question is, why were so many of our children who have had good upbringing, who knows what's right from wrong, who knows that you're not supposed to go and take something that doesn't belong to yourself unless you have worked for it, why would they think that they had a right to go out there last August and protest? And I think it is protest. I've had to reflect on this because my initial sense of what happened, I don't even call it the riots anymore, you see, because the young people I've been talking to, they said to me either mummy or auntie, why are you all calling it riots? If it was all about older people, you'd be saying this was a civil unrest, but because it's young people, it's riots.
So I think quite clear you can see a sequence of events from Mark Dudley's death, where I believe that if you look at it, the police first of all treated the population of Tottenham and the parents of family of that young man with a degree of disdain, which was palpable obvious even over the airwaves. And that disdain then moved to fear when people started to coalesce and the rioting started. In nowhere in the police response to that was there an idea of control, of respect or appropriateness of response. And I think that for the actual the touch paper of the events, the police have got to take a lot of blame. Yeah, before going, I think to remember there were some heroes that emerged during the riots, and Tarek Joao, who lost his son and spoke so valiantly and calmed things down. I think we really had to keep it in mind. We had to respect. And Pauline Pierce, the grandmother that went along on YouTube and vocalised what many of us are speaking, it was quite foul-mouthed but very eloquent.